Congratulations! You've finished the lessons of Part 1. Now we're up to the Mastery Quiz. But first, if you don't feel completely comfortable with all the pieces, then I suggest you go back and repeat whatever lessons or exercises you feel necessary. The movements of the chess pieces need to be in your fingers in order to flow with the ideas we're about to discuss in the Mastery Quiz. Before you start, I just want to say something. The questions in this Mastery Quiz may be a little bit harder than the ones you've seen so far, so don't move until you see it, and good luck. In this position, it's Black's move. I want you to think about it. Obviously, a pawn race is central to this issue. Black's pawn wants to shoot down to the a1 square, and White's pawn wants the queen on h8. You can decide whether you want to be white or black. So, the first step of this problem is to click on the white or black key, and then you'll play out the solution to the problem. Take your time, don't move until you see it. Who'd you like to play? White or black? Remember, it's Black's move. Good job. Okay, you've chosen to be black. Do you recognize this position? This is from the final game of the film Searching for Bobby Fischer. I had the black pieces in the film, and my opponent thought he was winning in the pawn race. In fact, white does queen first, but maybe black is winning. Let's play it out. What is your move? Good job. I play h5. Now what do you do? That's a good move, but it looks like I'm going to queen first. What's the next move? Now what are you going to do? I already have a queen. You don't. Yep, that's it. White queens first, but in fact black is winning, because you queen with check and then win the white queen. The white king is skewered, and after it moves, queen takes h8, black wins the game. Here white has mate in 2. It's your move. Good move. Cutting off the black king. My only legal move is king c8. It's your move. Way to go! Rook e8, a back rank mate. Here white has mate in 4. What's the first move? Rook b5 check. Good work. I play king g6. Rook a6 check. Excellent work. This is the pattern we saw earlier. Some people call this stair-stepping. I play king f7. Rook b7 check. And now after king e8, mate in 1. Rook a8 checkmate. Excellent work. Here white has mate in 5, but this one is a little tricky. Take your time. Recreate the pattern we found before. Excellent work. The correct answer is to switch sides. Rook b4, a quiet move. Now you cut off the black king from escaping towards the first rank. King f5 is played. What now? Good work. Rook a5 check. Now you begin the stair-stepping routine all over again. King e6. Very good. Rook b6 check. King f7. Now what? Rook a7 check. Good work. And now after I move... Excellent work. Rook b8. Checkmate. Here black has mate in 2. Take your time. Try to find it. Good move. With h4, black puts white into zugzwang. The only possible legal move is king to f1, because the rook cuts off the king along the d-file. And after king f1, what do? Rook d1 checkmate. Excellent work. So the h4 move, in a sense, was wasting time. Black had nothing immediate he could do. But after h4, white self-destructs. Remember, zugzwang means that any move you make will hurt your position. Notice that the black rook couldn't move anywhere else along the d-file, because white's pawns cover all the squares. And if black were to move rook a8, for example, then white could escape to d2 and leave the back rank. so h4 was the only way to mate in 2, utilizing the theme of Zugzwang. Here it's white to move and mate in 2. Don't move until you see it. King c2 discovered check. Black has to play king c4. That's the only move. Now mate in 1. Rook d4 mate. Good job. So notice that here in the endgame, the white king plays a critical role in attacking. This is something which we're going to see later on in the Chess Master courses. In the beginning of the game we want to defend our king, but later on the king can become a very powerful attacking piece. Here the king on c2 both guards the c3 pawn and takes away the b3 square from the black king. The white king is critical in mating the black king. This is a monster knight. Only the white knight can move, and he must capture all the black pieces without a break. Calculate everything out from the beginning so you don't make a mistake. What's the correct sequence? No, that's not quite it. Well done. That was quite a calculation. Really great work. Here's another monster knight. Remember, calculate everything out from the beginning so you don't make a mistake. Find the right pattern. No, that's not quite it. No, that's not quite it. Great job. That problem required some serious visualization. Another monster knight. Again, only the white knight can move and he must capture all the black pieces without a break. You know what to do. Well done. You're really getting good at this. Here it's white to move and win the black knight. Take your time. This is a little tricky. That's right. Bishop d5. The black knight is trapped. Anywhere it goes to, the white bishop can capture it. What's your next move? That's right. Bishop a5 or bishop g5 attacks the knight. The knight is pinned down to the square by the bishop on d5, and white wins the knight. This relationship between bishop and knight, when there are two squares between them, is very important. In this way, bishops can completely dominate knights. Here it's white to move. Now I know this position looks pretty confusing because there's a lot going on, but don't worry about it. Take your time, notice all the lines. White to move. What's best? Excellent work. But turns out white has checkmate in one move. Knight c3. The white rook on f8, bishop on h8, bishop on g4, knight on c3, and king on d2 all combine to corral the black king right in the center of the board. So if we return to this initial position, we see that the black king is stuck in the center of the board. We see that the white rook is cutting along the f-file, the white bishop, the white rook on h1 is very strong, but there's no way for it to attack because rook e1 check is guarded by the pawn on f2. Here you can see that white is in big trouble. The black queen on a5 has a discovered attack which is waiting to happen. The pawns on f2 and g2 are on the verge of queening. We know right away that white has to act fast, so that should be your first hint in this type of position. It's very easy to get caught up in the meaningless confusions when playing chess, or dealing with any life issue for that matter, and the key is to know where to look. When confronted by a tactical position, we should always look for forcing continuations, for example checks or captures. So here you want to look for all the checks that are possible. Knight c3 check was a check that also happens to be mate. The idea of this course is to learn the principles which will help you decipher and glide through complicated situations. In this final phase of the mastery quiz, you'll learn how to checkmate with king and queen against king, and then you'll try out your new skill. Then I'll teach you a slightly harder technique, mating with rook and king against king. Once you pass these tests, you'll have graduated to the next phase of the academy. These final two exercises will focus on the principles of corralling the enemy king. You can't just run straight at him. Slowly, patiently, you have to force the enemy against a wall before closing in for the final blow. This is a slightly more sophisticated way of thinking about chess, but you're ready for the challenge. Here we go. Let's begin from this position. The idea for white is to force the black king into the side or corner of the board. The white queen can't mate alone though. The king and queen have to coordinate together. So the first step is to start pushing the black king back. Queen d4 is an excellent centralizing move. Notice now the black king is stuck in this box. The d-file and fourth rank are closed off, so he has to stay over here. Let's say black plays king f5. Now white should bring the king into the game. King g2. He plays king e6. Black will do anything he can to stay away from the side of the board. Now I can bring the king into the game again. King f3. King activity is a critical theme in the endgame. You'll see this over and over. Let's say black plays king f5. Here white can push the black king further back. Let's say you play queen d5 check. You see now the white king guards the f4 and g4 squares. Black has to go backwards. Say king f6. Now what you do is bring the king into the game once more. King f4. Black has to make a decision. He plays king g6. Now white can move the queen. Play queen e6 check. Now black, you see, is pushed closer and closer towards one side or another of the board. If black plays king h5, then white has a number of options, one of which is the quiet move, for example, queen d6. You see the queen cuts off the sixth rank, and then after king h4, there's checkmate with queen h6 mate. If black plays king back to g7, then the white king can come further into the game, king g5. We're pushing the black king back. Let's say black plays king h7 here. Here's a tricky one. If white plays queen f7 check, forcing the black king into the corner after king h8, because notice the white king guards the h6 square, after king h8 you might want to bring the king into the game, but that would be a terrible mistake. After king g6 or king h6, the black king is stalemated. Don't fall into this trick. So queen f7 actually wasn't the best move, but if you played it, it's no problem. Now you can just bring the queen back to e7, waste a move. Black plays king g8, and now white has mate in 2, king g6, king h8, and now there's tons of mates. Queen d8 is a back rank mate, queen e8, queen f8 are also checkmate, or you can play queen g7 mate, or queen h7 mate. So you see how white did this. Again, we began in this type of position. No matter where the black king is, white's pattern will be to slowly but surely push the king to the edge of the board. Then the king and the queen combine. Remember, the basic themes you want to keep in mind. First of all, prevent the king from escaping. Remember, after queen d4, the black king, like in this position, is in a box. Then the king runs away towards the side of the board because he has nowhere else to go. Then you bring the king into the game. King activity is a critical theme in all endgames, especially when you're forcing mate. with king and queen or king and rook against king. Then you want to slowly but surely prevent the black king from escaping wherever he tries to run to, force the king to the side of the board, and at the very end there'll be moments where you can fall into stalemate traps. Don't do that. Often in chess, when you're closest to winning, you can throw the game away. That's the key to mating with king and queen against king. Now you try. Congratulations! You passed the first test. You know how to mate with king and queen again. So you see how white did this. Again, we began in this type of position. Congratulations! You passed the... So you see how white did this. Again, we began in this type of position. No matter where the black king is, white's pattern... Congratulations! You passed the first test. You know how to mate with king and queen against king. Now this one's going to be a little bit harder. Now you're going to mate with king and rook against king. The idea is the same, but of course you have a much less powerful piece to work with. First of all, congratulations! You passed the first test. You know how to mate with king and queen against king. Now this one's going to be a little bit harder. Now you're going to mate with king and rook against king. The idea is the same, but of course you have a much less powerful piece to work with. First of all, we want to cut off the white king. I'm going to show you the most principled way of doing this. Sometimes there are slightly faster ways to checkmate, but the ideas I'm going to show you are what I want you to focus on and internalize. So first of all, because the black king is down here, we're making the decision that we're going to push the white king away from us, down the board. So black's first move is rook a4, cutting off the king from coming this way. White plays king d5. Now you have to bring the king to the game. King g2. White plays king c5. And you bring the king into the game. King f3. Now white wants to stay in the center of the board. He plays king d5. And now black plays king e3. The key relationship will be seen now. If white plays king e5, now the kings are lined up. If black checks the king is forced to move backwards. Now there are two basic techniques you could learn here. One of which is to play the move rook d4. This way you're keeping the king in this box like you did with the queen. And you can slowly but surely make that box smaller and smaller. That's actually the fastest way to do it. But I'm going to show you something else just so you can learn the idea. After you play rook check, say the white king goes back, king d6. And now you bring your king up, king d4. Now the king moves to c6. We've reached a critical position here. Again, there are two ways to go about it. One of which is to play the move rook d5. Now you see the white king is again in a very small box. He has to slowly move towards the edge of the board. The other way to go about it is to move the rook further. You could play the move rook to h5. This may not make sense right away, and I'm going to show you why. Remember, the thing we want to keep on creating is a position where, say, the white and black king are lined up like this. The king guards all of these three squares by which the white king could escape. Then the rook can leave that rank and check, and the king has to go further back. So if we're in this position, let's say you play king c4, then white could go back to where he just came from, king d6. Then black could play king d4, white can play king c6. Black hasn't made any progress. The key to the quiet move, rook h5, is that now it's white's turn. This is using the theme again of Zugzwang, forcing white to self-destruct a little bit. If white plays king b6, then black can play king c4. Eventually, white's going to have to run the other way, say king c6. And now the kings are lined up. Black can play rook h6 check, and the king is forced back one more rank. Say king d7. Then you play the move king d5. Now the white king can run either left or right. Notice, of course, that if the king moves back, say to c8, then black's next move is going to be to play rook h7, again forcing the king to be trapped on the back rank. Instead, white will either play king e7 or king c7. He wants to stay off the back rank as long as possible. If he plays king c7, remember before if you play king c5 here, the king will just run back the other way? So here we need a quiet move. The move rook g6 works, just wasting a move. Because now if white goes king d7, then rook g7 check will force the king back one more rank. Instead, white will play king b7. Now you can play king c5. Now if white plays king c7, you have the option of playing rook g7 check, forcing the white king back again. So instead, let's say white plays king a7. As you can see here, you have the option now of playing king b5. Now the white king is finally forced to play king b7, and you can play rook g7 check, forcing the king back one more rank. But then the point is that after king c8, the white king can try to run all the way down here. This will take a few moves. Black has another option. At this point, we can switch our attack. Instead of trying to force him against the back rank, we can hold him against the side of the board. You can play the move rook to b6. Now the white king is completely confined. King a8, and you can bring the king to the game. King c6. The only legal move is king a7. And now we know what we're aiming for, a position like this. So in this position, you can waste a move. Rook goes back to b1, or b2, or b3, or b4. No difference really. If white plays king a6, checkmate. If white plays king a8, then king c7. The only legal move for white is king a7, and then rook a1 is checkmate. So again, let's think about the themes we just discussed. First of all, we cut off the white king, forcing him to stay on one side of the board. Then we brought the king into the game. Then we had options. In positions like this, we can either waste a move and ultimately force the king back one more rank, or we could play, for example here, rook e4. You see what this does, this forces the king into a corner of the board. It's a different technique. Say the king goes to f6, then you can bring your king up into the game. Now the king moves to g6. Now you can play rook e6 check. The king moves back, say to f7. If the king goes to h5, remember this idea, wasting a move, you play rook a6, the king's only legal move is king h4, rook h6 is checkmate. So instead white plays king f7, and now black brings the king into the game. King f5, king g7. Now is another one of those moments where you can play with one of the two techniques. You can either play a quiet move with rook a6, or you can play the move rook f6, trapping the white king into playing in this tiny little corner of the board. Let's say you play king h7, then rook g6. Now the king is only confined to these two squares. White plays king h8, and now the black king comes into the game. King f6, king h7, king f7, king h8, mate in 1, rook h6, checkmate. So here you see how to mate with a rook and king against king. The ideas are what I want you to remember here, not memorizing moves. I showed you two different basic techniques which are related. Remember, sometimes you can waste a move to help your position. You want to slowly confine the king to moving closer and closer to the side or corner of the board, cutting off its escape routes as you go on. It takes patience, methodical thought, but now you're ready to do it. Let's test you out.